Dr. Jackson from Texas for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir, for being here today. Just wanted to start off with just to make a point that, federal money doesn't grow on trees around here in D.C., despite what people around here sometimes think. It's provided by hardworking Americans, and the Constitution entrusts Congress with the responsibility to utilize public dollars to provide for the national defense and to create programs that benefit those who are paying for them in the first place, in the case of NIH and critical research that's beneficial to the citizens of this country. Dr. Tabak and EcoHealth Alliance were dishonest in their stewardship of taxpayer dollars, and ultimately they were caught and tried to find ways to cover this up, and that's pretty obvious from what we've heard today. Dr. Tabak's testimony in front of this committee contradicted statements of the National Institute of Health and the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, and we appreciate you, Dr. Tabak, for taking time to clarify the record today. However, we're having this hearing today because NIH's failed policies and procedures and lack of oversight that granted EcoHealth Alliance dollars to conduct dangerous gain-of-function research in the first place. And despite what you hear from colleagues on the other side of the aisle often here, I'm astonished that they continue to bury their head in the sand on this issue. The evidence is overwhelming from what we've heard on this committee that the virus did not evolve naturally, but was a result of some sort of gain-of-function manipulation. It's not logical to assume at this point that this is a total coincidence and that it just happened to emerge in Wuhan, China, and it just happened to be where Dr. Fauci, Peter Daszak, and NIH and EcoHealth Alliance just happened to be funding gain-of-function research on a coronavirus with U.S. taxpayer dollars. And that's becoming more and more obvious every day. We saw that the funding was suspended by HHS just yesterday. I have an article here that I was reading online just before coming in here that was published last night. It says, for years now, EcoHealth has generated immense controversy for its use of federal grant money to support gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses in the Wuhan lab. It goes on to say, in a memo justifying its funding suspension, HHS said that EcoHealth had failed to properly monitor the work it was supporting at Wuhan. It also failed to properly report the results of experiments showing that the hybrid viruses it was creating there had improved the ability to infect human cells. That was from HHS. And then it goes on to describe some of the research and what it was intended to do, and it says, soon enough, EcoHealth used some of the viruses that they collected to create chimeric or hybrid viruses that might be better able to infect human lung cells in genetically engineered humanized mice. I think that in my particular opinion, it's become obvious that NIH has become too independent, too rogue, and too unregulated at this particular point. There needs to be a complete audit of the policies and procedures and proper oversight from outside entities at this point. It's become obvious that NIH is just another government bureaucracy to some extent that's too large and refuses to hold those who do wrong accountable. This is evidenced, in my opinion, by what we've heard today from you, unfortunately, by your with the continued employment of Dr. Morano and your insistence that you have no obligation to discuss personnel matters, quote, personnel matters, with members of Congress that provide millions and millions of dollars to perform research and pay for the salaries of employees such as Dr. Moran. I want to ask you, in August of 2021, the NIH finally received EcoHealth Alliance's 5-year annual progress report nearly 2 years after September 2019 deadline. In September 2023, the Wuhan Institute of Virology was funded by EcoHealth Alliance, was disbarred from receiving federal funds because of their implications in the development of the COVID-19. Then on November 14th, Dr. Tabak testified that samples from experiments funded by the United States are in possession of the Chinese Communist Party in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Today, some of those samples remain in the under the custodianship of the CCP. Dr. Tabak, in your opinion, and with this information, was Dr. Tabak a good steward of taxpayer dollars?
He was not.
Okay, I'm running out of time here, so I'm not going to ask the following questions I have. I'll just submit those for the record. But I just want to reiterate that one of the things that drives me crazy on all of the committees I'm on, this one included, is the complete lack of accountability when things go wrong. I think there has to be accountability. I think that when we come up with stuff here that's a danger to our country, when we find out that we're on the wrong path on something like this research that was happening at NIH, that we were funding what was going on in the Wuhan Institute of Virology, that we have to make corrections directions, that it has to be bipartisan efforts to do that, and that entities like NIH and people that like you that are in leadership roles have to have the level of responsibility there has to be some accountability, and you have to be accountable not only to yourself and to your institution, but to members of Congress. Thank you. With that, I go back.